Okay, so we'll call the meeting to order. This meeting takes place in the traditional and ancestral territory of the Mi'kmaq people. We are all treaty people. There is one addition to the agenda, 8.1 Dockfest banner request, Lunenburg Dockfest. Basically, staff received this request late, so we're gonna, if you guys are okay with that, we're gonna add it for tonight because it's sort of a time restraint thing. So is everybody good with that? Okay. So basically then approval of the agenda with the addition. Someone prepared to move that?
I'll move the approval of the agenda with the added item 8.1.
Moves or a seconder? Second by Councillor Strong. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, motion carried, unanimous. Approval of the minutes, recommendation that council approve the 24-25 meeting minutes as presented. Is there a mover? Moved by Deputy Mayor or?
Move the minutes with it, just an amendment that the under Councillor Reports, there near the end of that, there's some information that was provided by the mayor and it's attributed to me. So just the correction of the appropriate speaker in that last paragraph there looked to be fine to me. Otherwise, thanks.
So it's moved with that correction. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Greek. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, motion carried, unanimous. There are no presentations. Is anyone signed up? Just wait 2 seconds. We're into 7, public input and questions. Okay. Robert, you're up.
Okay, Robert Young from Lunenburg. Question number 1. July 1st, did we have enough hot dogs?
We had enough. We served till almost 2:30, and we actually ran out at 2:30, but we went an hour past our time, so it was great.
Okay, there was a request went out through the Board of Trade, I think, asking people to make donations to the fest. So did you get any donations?
I honestly
Okay.
can't answer that question. I have no idea.
Didn't have enough volunteers though, did you?
Actually, we had a very good setup in the hot dog cake area. We normally have 2 cakes. We had 3 this year, and we did run out of cake early. So next year, there have been some notes made of things we need. We went through 1,000 hot dogs, 750 juice packs, 3 cakes, and a partridge in a pear tree. I have no idea what else we went through.
I noticed it was quite a lineup to get a hot dog, so I didn't get a hot dog. So
I was very disappointed. We bought Larson's just for you, and you didn't even come.
So what else do I want to know? Maybe you should put out a invite for people to volunteer next time. In my opinion, may get 1 or 2 or something like that, 3 or 4. I wouldn't last a whole day if I did it. So let's put it, put it in the back of your mind, okay?
Yeah, and actually, we did have a shout out to the Board of Trade this year because of staffing and some other things. We were late to the game at this whole thing. Basically, the Board of Trade and the museum, Candace at the Board of Trade / museum, basically put this together, and with help from our staff, of course, towards the end, we pulled it off, and then of course staff and council and our team stepped up the day of. But really, we have to be thankful for the Board of Trade and the museum because they did the lion's share of this year's work. Next year it'll be more back to normal, a 3-way team effort. And again, if people want to volunteer on that day, if you send any one of us an email, we'll gladly accept your offer. We had a doctor help us this year, reached out to the deputy mayor, lives by her parents, and he was standing side by side by us all day serving hot dogs. So it was great.
That would kill me if I had to stay that long, I have to bring my own chair with me. Okay, one more thing. I don't know how to put it to you. And this is a cost sharing with the provincial and federal government. It was a write-up in the Chronicle Herald, I think, last week about all that work that's getting done out in Mahone Bay, that 99.1% of it was not paid for by the town. So anyways, I did some digging around, and because they say Dylan Hyde is a really good at raising money. So he got money not just from the provincial federal government, from other organizations. So you may want to talk to him about getting more money. I'd like to see the town go solar and geothermal and it is, they got a lot of it from the Green Fund, okay? So, give them a call, have them sit down with you 5 or 10 minutes and he can help you out, scratch each other's back and, I mean, we can get the capital projects done for 1 cent on the dollar, I'll take it.
Thank you, Robert. We have a good relationship with Mahone Bay and we will be reaching out. So I don't, thank you.
Okay, that's it.
So I always say this is only one other person in the audience, but if you'd like to get up and say a few words, you can. Are you good? On then to number 8, correspondence. 8.1 is actually, we have 2 8.1s. They're both banner requests. So they're action items. So staff, council would like to, or does staff have a report on either one of them? Because they were sort of new to the game. Sure, just go.
Council wants a bit more information. Just essentially, we just added, there's a physical copy of the Lunenburg Dock Fest request. So typically the town doesn't receive many banner requests to put up banners. So we have 2 back to back here. So without a policy or a practice or how to handle it, the intent would be, if council did want to move forward with a request like that, perhaps there would be a motion to explore the feasibility, the logistics, if there's any associated costs. But recognizing that's like another shift in possible priorities, if it were to be a public works item or if we contract it out, or again, it's a good request and I think everyone wants to accommodate these, but there's a little bit of missing pieces on what that would look like. So there are possible motions for council to consider, but I will leave it there. And if anyone has any questions or help with wording, creating something, we're here to help.
I don't know if everybody has this one from DocFest, but at the bottom of their request, they actually say that they'll cover production and installation costs and coordinate with the town's recommended installer. So I know when they hang the snowflakes up at Christmas time, we hire an electrician that has the bucket truck that comes around. So maybe for that, if we, want to look at options with staff and recommend that installer, because he knows the town has been doing it for a number of years, if they're willing to pick up the bill, it's really just us requesting, our staff to coordinate with them to do it. So I'd see no harm in that. And as for the Legion one, I think again, we'd have to send this back and have staff come back with some more information if they can do it or who's going to do it for them. But I think that both these requests myself personally are worth looking into more serious to make sure we can help them in some which way, shape or form.
I mean, part of the issue is locating, where they go and what, how the banners are installed. In addition to, finding a contractor or someone to do it and coordinating with anything else that may be going on in town. So I think it would make sense to, look favorably on both these requests. But in the interim, direct staff to explore options for banner installation with these requests in mind, including what the logistics might look like, responsibilities and costs, and to see how we may be able to accommodate requests like this in the future.
Is that a motion, Deputy Mayor? It's moved. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Strong. Any further discussion on the motion? Councillor Fullerton.
I just have a question about what is Montague Forum? No? Okay.
Yeah, would it be? I don't know what it would be unless it's down by their office there. That's on Montague Street. I don't know. Or it's a typo, maybe. We can ask.
No, I think the intention is clear. It just threw me because I haven't heard that expression.
Neither have I. I just noticed it. No, thank you. Any other questions or concerns? Okay, all those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Contrary minded, motion carried unanimous. 8.2, there is no action, just a notice from the RCMP basically just informing us we're going to be paying about $100,000 more this year than last. And because we're going to have, I guess, increased better service to match the service they feel they need to provide. So that's just standard letter. 8.3, there is a request, Nourishing Communities Program, letter of support request. You all have it there. They actually have a draft letter they'd like us just to forward and sign. So there's a motion in front of us. Is someone prepared to move that motion? Councillor Strong, is there a seconder? Councillor Babineau, any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, motion carried unanimous. 9, there's no public hearings. 10, business arising and unfinished business. 10.1 is the traffic and parking study. Tyson?
Thank you, Your Worship, and good evening to everybody. This for information report goes back to the March 4th Committee of the Whole meeting where the traffic and parking study was presented to, I think it was following the presentation to council, and staff requested direction from council on any follow-up items. So there were 4 designated at that time. We've covered 2 in this report. It was getting lengthy with the 2, and felt maybe it would be better to break it up. So the first 2 that are covered in this report are the reconfiguration of the community centre parking lot and then accessible parking considerations. So starting with the reconfiguration of the community centre parking lot, there was a section in the report that looked at reconfiguring it and realigning from the slanted parking that sort of dominates that parking lot to more perpendicular to the path of travel. So that was one aspect. Adding a concrete sidewalk along the frontage of the curling club and the community centre. Adding concrete islands to add permanent definition to the space and improve safety. And then including accessible spaces close to the entrances of all 3 buildings in that area. So the reconfiguration added approximately 40 parking spaces and was intended to make improvements for accessibility and pedestrian safety. So included in the traffic and parking study was a cost breakdown. I've included it as an attachment to the report along with the reconfiguration concept. So the total estimate provided by the consultant was $292,000. And that included a significant contingency. So that included sidewalk, curb, some patching in front of the sidewalk, asphalt patching, and then the pavement markings. So all in all, that 194 plus or 195 plus the contingency gets us to that 292. The line marking looks like it's about 35 of the 195. The concrete sidewalks are a significant portion of that cost in the breakdown. So in terms of the work, it's difficult to draw new lines over old lines without it becoming ineffective, in my opinion. So in terms of the capital budget, staff showed this project as part of a community centre, the parking lot resurfacing, and then the traffic study changes. So that was penciled in for 2930, a total value of 710, like the 292 plus the net. HST was carried in the $310,000 line, and then $400,000 for resurfacing. But of course, that's just a forecast looking ahead and up to council's discretion. So moving on to the accessible parking considerations. Within the town of Lunenburg, we have 32 accessible parking bays on town property. So there's 17 in the old town core, 2 each at the Lunenburg Academy and Fire Hall, 5 at the community centre parking lot, and 6 in New Town, mainly up around the hospital and the medical centre, but 1 also at Blue Nose Academy on Kinnickle Road. So staff have looked at our existing configurations for the accessible parking spots, compared them to the provisions in the accessible design for built environment, which is CSA V651/23. And there's some fairly obvious opportunities for us to improve it and bring ourselves up to the standards that are commonplace today. So staff have generated 3 action items. So to look for opportunities to better fit accessible parking bays to the existing town infrastructure. So what I mean by that is some of our accessible parking bays are on significant slopes, which isn't necessarily appropriate for accessible parking bays, or in more difficult places to access. So we can look to make improvements there. The addition of curb ramps and access aisles to the rear of parallel accessible parking bays, particularly in mid-block or end-of-block locations within the Old Town core. So within the attachments, I've included the accessible design for built environment. So it shows with those perpendicular bays that there would be an access aisle similar to the one down on Blue Nose Drive, down near the dental office. So it provides the direct access to the sidewalk, and there's a curb ramp there at the top of the aisle. And then with the parallel parking situation, there's for a mid-block or a starter block accessible parking spot, there's an aisle at the rear of the parking spot, again with a curb ramp. So just for reference, I'm talking about figure 67 and figure 68 in the attachments to the report. And then the third one is the reconfiguration of the existing perpendicular parking spaces at the Lunenburg Academy, the Fire Hall, and the Lincoln Street parking lot, including adding access aisles and better signage for identification. So just for context there, at the Academy and the Fire Hall, at the rear of the Fire Hall, those accessible parking spots are sort of in the middle of the parking lot, I'm going to call them, or sort of close to the building, but it makes signage difficult with that location because it's often in the way for snow clearing and that kind of thing. So at the Academy, it might be possible with a little bit of reconfiguration of that parking lot to get it closer to the pathway, the spots that are there sort of towards the center, over towards the side to provide better access there. That would sort of be an example. And then the Lincoln Street parking lot, we'd have to look at the grade on that particular one and then adding the access aisle to that current configuration. So for items 1 and 2, it's within the regulations, it's necessary for the town to engage with persons with disabilities about the different aspects relating to the functionality of the accessible spaces. And honestly, with the third one, I think that makes sense as well, to get input from persons with disabilities and understand whether it would truly be effective, what we're trying to achieve. So talking to our regional accessibility coordinator, who I think council's met Ellen Johnson, and she's an excellent resource for the town, and she's prepared to help us with that. So item 3, where these are town-owned parking lots, it aligns us with a priority item identified in the Lunenburg County Accessibility Plan, and that is to ensure that all municipal parking areas and municipally managed parking areas have accessible parking spaces and appropriate drop-off locations for larger vehicles. Accessible parking shall meet the Accessibility Act's built environment standard. So that last part's what we're trying to achieve there. In terms of these improvements, it makes sense to perform them with an incrementally phased approach. Generally, this work would be performed by Public Works, with costs being allocated to the accessibility improvements line included in the capital budget that council's approved on May 27th. So the amount included in this year's budget is $20,000. Carrying out the upgrades to all of the accessible parking bays as a single project would likely cost several hundreds of thousands of dollars and just be too large a scope for Public Works to self-perform with everything else within our scope. So in terms of the ratio of the accessible parking spaces, just looking at the old town core, we have 17 out of the approximately 430 identified in the parking and traffic study. So that puts us in line with the standards. So we really, it's about getting the effectiveness out of the 17 rather than just meeting the ratio. That's how we can look at that. So the report has identified the timing and level of commitment made by council within the 25-26 capital budget, and then looking ahead, if council wishes to advance or accelerate either of these scopes, consideration should be given when providing direction in 26-27. So that's looking at both the community centre parking lot and the accessible aspects. That concludes the report, but happy to take questions.
Thank you, Tyson. Any questions? Deputy Mayor?
So thanks, Tyson. Just on both counts, I've got a couple of questions. With respect to the reconfiguration of the community center parking lot, and I understand we're looking a number of years down the road, but is it your thought that the configuration provided is what we would be using as a plan when we do the resurfacing and reconfiguration? I'm wondering in particular about the concrete barriers at the ends. I know those can sometimes be as much of a hazard as they are a help, and I'm actually wondering if it's advisable to include those, or if, you know, what your opinion would be, or if there's further thought to be given to those in particular for that space.
Through the chair, I think my understanding is the intent of including those was to provide the physical barrier so that traffic travels between the barriers rather than a little bit haphazardly, maybe at times now where it's kind of everyone sort of got free rein at times. So providing definition to try and define the path that the traffic travels in is, I would say that's good engineering practice. It can be biohazardous. I mean, they need to be identified so that plows aren't smashing into them and busting them up, but that's something that could fairly easily be addressed. It also just gives a spot for pedestrians potentially to, if they were crossing the parking lot and they needed to stop or check something, it gets them away that they're out of traffic. and a little bit of protection, maybe. Not, I mean, there's only, on the plan I'm looking at, there's 3 of them. So I wouldn't overemphasize that aspect of it, but I think it's a helpful feature, more helpful than hazardous, I guess.
And just further to the design, I know the positive feature of the reconfiguration from an angled parking to perpendicular is the addition of spaces, so we can actually accommodate more parking, which is a very good thing. I am concerned or interested to know what the size of them are and if they're reduced. I mean, they're quite generous now, which is quite lovely. I personally am not a fan of the, squeeze in and see if you can get out without bumping into your neighbor's car with your car door when you get out. So I just didn't know if they were reduced significantly with this reconfiguration or if that's a known entity at this point.
Through the chair, I think I understand what you mean. So the angled parking gives you more of a staggered, and the doors aren't as tight as the perpendicular. I think my understanding is that the consultant tried to fit in as many bays as reasonably without making it super tight, but I apologize. I can't remember what the dimensions were included, and this is a concept, right? So it would need further development, and maybe there'd be a trade-off there if we felt they were too tight. Maybe we're not getting 40 spaces. Maybe we're getting 25 or 28 or whatever the number is. But that's something that we could consider in the execution of the project.
Try to remember to bring that up a couple of years from now. Because I just think it's worth looking at just with respect to the accessible parking improvements. I'm glad that there's a little bit of opportunity for us to get that started, if I understand correctly from the amount that's in the budget. Is there like priority ones, or is that something you talk with Ellen about what little small initiatives you might take in getting that started this year?
So through the chair, so that accessibility improvements line in the budget covers this kind of thing, but it also includes additional pedestrian ramps that Public Works installs or railings. We recently put a railing. So I don't know exactly how many improvements we could make, but I would like to potentially focus on the ones in item 3 in the public parking lots where that aligns directly with that regional plan, but also planning ahead for next year. And I feel like the ones in the mid-block areas are critical because the ones at the start and the end of the block often have the pedestrian, like the ramp access already installed. And although it's not what's in the regulations, it's a lot closer than the mid-block ones. So looking for those bigger impacts, I think's how we should approach it.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Tyson, thank you very much. Now 10.2 is community grants. Yep, Jamie Deans has a report, and I'd just like to thank my colleagues, Councillor Strong, Deputy Mayor, for meeting last week, whatever day that was. It was about a 3-hour meeting trying to go through all these and decipher them. And it's for the amount of money we actually hand out at the end of the day, it's a lot of work and a lot of time put into it. So thank you very much, Jamie.
Thanks. So essentially, as you mentioned, the staff and everyone, we've reviewed the grants. We received 30 submissions as per our call for submissions that we put out earlier in the year. We went through all of them, screened them, made sure that they were all meeting the criteria, and we tried our best to allocate as fairly as we could based on need and other criteria. So the summary included, it contains, total allocation based on current year's approved budgets, $28,000, which includes the Lunenburg Wheels contribution, which is $10,000. So there was $18,000 more or less that was going to be allocated. So essentially, if you have any questions, I suppose, about where the grants went or who got what, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, there's just recommendation the council approve the allocation of funds for the 2025-26 Community Grants Program as presented in attachment A. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments or questions from anybody? I have just a few comments more so than questions from going through this process now and 15 years ago. And one is, I think that another year we should look at taking that $10,000 out from Lunenburg County Wheels and making that a separate line item under transportation, because I think that it's something that we'll probably contribute to annually. It's very important to the residents in the community. So I think under grants, for two reasons. One, it takes from our grant amount, but number two, it means they have to come before us every year and request that funds. They're not even sure when they're budgeting if we're going to give it, even though I think we will. So that's one I'd like to see us do. And then the second thing is, I'm not sure how this happened, but 15 years ago when our budget was $6 million, we used to give $30,000+ in grants, and now our budget's 11 million and we're giving basically 18,000 because of the bus grant. So I think we should look at budget time next year or before budget time of aligning a percentage of the budget, whatever that is, and I don't know what that is, but go back to staff and a percentage of the budget to grants. So that way, if the budget goes up, the grant amount goes up, because really we spent a lot of time to give $18,000 out of an $11 million budget. Really doesn't really make a lot of sense, to be honest. So we've done our best and we're going to help the community organization as much as we possibly can, but we'd be nice at budget time if we knew it was going to be 1%, 2%, 3% of the budget. So that's just my recommendation moving forward, because I'm not sure how we are where we are now. So there's any other, Councillor Strong?
My colleague to my left here has mentioned that there's a line on page 2 of the chart, and I can't read it because I've got like the 3-hole punch in mine. We're still waiting for a response. Yeah, that's what I figured. But if we pass this now, is that gonna?
I don't think we received a.
No, yes, sorry, through the chair. We did not receive it, and as far as I know, they received funding through another source, but that sort of came to light after this was printed. So apologies for leaving it in there, but they're okay in terms of needing the money from us.
That's okay.
This was a really a very interesting experience for me, and I have to agree with the mayor about the amount of monies involved. And just tonight, when I looked at it again for the 4th time before coming to this meeting, I found that 5 out of the 30 requests all involve food insecurity, and that doesn't even include the non-applicants for grants in the community that are working to reduce food insecurity. And I'm just sending a message that it seems to be a growth thing in grant applications, and we should be keeping an eye on it. I don't, as from an advocacy point of view, since I'm usually an advocate and not a counselor, it seems to me having an association of food insecurity, it sounds horrible to say, would be far more effective at gaining traction at the federal and provincial level. But anyway, it was a very difficult process, and it took 3 hours because of that. So that's just my comments on it.
And yeah, one thing I forgot to mention too, we are giving out approximately not quite $18,000 tonight, but we're also, if you read the requests and some of the things we're offering probably $5,000 to $10,000 in-kind donations. For example, I'll use the swimming pool was in there and they requested either in-kind or financial. So we're offering them the community center for 3 days where they're hosting the provincials this year. Well, that's technically that they had in their budget, if they would have had to pay roughly $3,000. So we're offering that to them in kind. So again, I just wanted to highlight that when you're going down through there, it's more than just the 18,000. It is easier for us at sometimes to offer that type of assistance. So we did spend a lot of time basically hashing that out and coming to some agreements. So again, we are helping some organizations that are very important to this community and very important to us that might look like zero or very low amounts. But then if you read and see what we're doing in kind, they're getting much more than what we're giving to them financial. So I just want to highlight that. So there is a recommendation there in front of us. Is someone prepared to move that recommendation? Councillor Strong, do you want to read it out?
I'd like to make a motion that council approve the allocation of funds for the 2025-26 Community Grants Program as presented in attachment A of the.
Been moved. Is there a seconder? Second by Councillor Babineau. Any further discussion or question? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, motion carried unanimous. We'll move on to 11.1. Tender award fire hall apron. So I assume that's Tyson since I don't see Lisa.
No, thank you, Your Worship. So the fire hall apron replacement tender award, it's 2 recommendations to council in the report. First is that council increase the budget for the fire hall apron replacement project to $212,100 funded by deed transfer taxes. The second recommendation is that council award the fire hall apron replacement tender to Dexter Construction Company Limited for the amount of $169,900 plus tax. So some background on this project. The concrete apron in front of the fire hall is really in a poor condition. So it's crumbling. Small chunks of concrete are coming loose frequently. Previously, Public Works has tried patching around the edges with asphalt, but it's kind of the stopgap solution has sort of come to the end of its life. So the existing apron needs to be replaced with a reinforced concrete apron to support the weight of existing and the future fire equipment Lunenburg District has to offer. So back in 2021, a geotechnical investigation and tender set of drawings were completed for the scope. It was advertised December 2021. Unfortunately, at that time, it was significantly over the allowed budget and had to be deferred. So the patching has kind of gone on and trying to stretch it out, but we're kind of at that point where it's not feasible. So scope of this project includes removal of the existing concrete apron and bollards, disposal of those materials, placing of structural fill underneath the base of the new apron, construction of the new reinforced concrete apron and replacement bollards, and then perimeter reinstatement. So asphalt patching, if the curb gets disturbed, that'll have to be reinstated, and any landscaping. So in terms of the tender, it closed on June 25th and has 90 days validity period. The table at the top of the page summarizes the results. So good to see 4 tenderers involved and not a lot of variance sort of at the low end there. So although the bidding was more than the value included in the 25-26 capital budget, staff are recommending the apron replacement proceed for a number of reasons to best protect the investment the town and district has made in the firefighting equipment that the fire department possesses, and then for the safety of the personnel who volunteer at the fire department. In terms of the finances, like we've said, the 25-26 town capital budget includes $145,000. And at that time, funding was anticipated 50-50 between the town and the district. And the town's portion was to be funded with the deed transfer taxes. So the revised budget for the project, including some engineering support, the tender, and a contingency, comes up to $212,100. So the increase from the 145 up to the 212,100 would also is proposed to be funded by the town's deed transfer taxes. And talking to Kathleen about this prior to the meeting, she's very confident that the capacity exists within the transferred tax reserves. So staff did pursue a contribution from the District Fire Commission to this project. However, they indicated to staff that their focus remains on firefighting equipment and won't be contributing to this particular project. So that concludes the report, but if there are any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions for anybody? I will chime in that I'm very disappointed in District Commission's response, because the surface of the fire department and the condition of the fire department that houses the equipment that's inside is every bit as important basically as the equipment inside, and their firefighters responding to fires will be every bit as in danger if we don't pass this and do it. And I think they have money in their account from what I know, so I'm disappointed that they didn't at least pay, were willing to pay at least half of the extra. So I'll just we'll go on record to say that this does disappoint me. So there are two recommendations in front of us. Is someone prepared to move that recommendation? Councillor Greek.
I move that council increase the budget for the fire hall apron replacement project to $212,100, funded by deed transfer taxes.
Is there a seconder? Second by Deputy Mayor. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed? Motion carried unanimous. Recommendation number 2. Who'd like to? Councillor Strong.
I'd like to make a motion that council award the fire hall apron replacement tender to Dexter Construction Company Limited for the amount of $169,900 plus HST.
So moved. Is there a seconder? Second by Councillor Babineau. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed? Motion carried unanimous. Thank you very much. Now we'll go on to 11.2, funding reallocation for Starr Street. Tyson, you're the star of the night.
Thank you, Your Worship. Got the hat trick here tonight. So the Starr Street new sidewalk project funding reallocation. The recommendation in the report is that council reallocate the Starr Street new sidewalk funding of $36,000 to the Pelham Street sidewalk, Shipyard Hill to Town Limits renewal project. There are several alternatives outlined in the report as well, that council reallocate the Starr Street new sidewalk funding to an alternative sidewalk project, that council reallocate funding to an alternative smaller infrastructure improvements item within the town capital budget. And the last alternative is that council defer making a reallocation of the Starr Street new sidewalk funding at this time and defer that choice. So the background on this report ties back to the daycare looking for the alternative site. So within the 25-26 capital budget process, a new sidewalk from Lincoln Street down to the new proposed site on Starr Street was included. And that was following the discussions from February where council committed to entering into the long-term lease agreement with the Lunenburg Daycare Centre for developing the new site. So back on June 13, the town received correspondence from the Lunenburg Daycare advising that they intend to proceed with upgrades and expansion at their existing Lincoln Street site, as the proposed Starr Street site was not the most viable option for them. With the primary aim of the new sidewalk on Starr Street to provide a safe and efficient connection from the existing sidewalk network to the future daycare site no longer applicable, staff are seeking direction if and where the intended funding can be reallocated. So the value included in the 25-26 capital budget for the new sidewalk on Starr Street is $36,000, which was intended for the initial engineering and design component of the project. And then in the look ahead to 26-27, there was an amount of $490,000 earmarked for the construction, inspection, and other costs associated with the execution of the work. So just to be clear, this year's portion is only $36,000. So in terms of the discussion, so we're looking at the alternative sidewalk projects. So I've compiled a table of the sidewalk projects that were included in the 5-year look ahead in the capital budget. So we have the Pelham Street, Shipyard Hill to town limits. We have Victoria Road from Green Street around to the crosswalk opposite BMR was included in 2 phases. And then we had Linden Avenue as well, appearing sort of towards the end of the 5-year cycle in that document. So based on those options, staff's recommendation would be to proceed with the design phase for the Pelham Street sidewalk renewal from Shipyard Hill to town limits. So this is approximately 375 meters of existing asphalt sidewalk that's in, I've described it as poor condition, but I think the photos in the report kind of give a good indication of the worst places along there. So it's it's projected as a similar value project to Starr Street, and it was projected to appear in 26-27 for design and 27-28. So it was our next sidewalk project if we were following the 5-year forecast. So it's pulling that one back a year. So although Victoria Road is certainly a heavily utilised sidewalk and also in relatively poor condition, staff's recommendation is to wait until the electrical infrastructure upgrades have been completed in this area before commencing this sidewalk renewal project. So allowing that electrical capital project to go ahead, and then the design can best fit the conditions that we're left with following that. The new sidewalk shown for Linden is also tied to planned road upgrades that were included in the 5-year forecast. So advancing this work appears impractical unless other substantial changes are made to the 25-26 town capital budget. And this would be the same during the budget discussions. I can recall we spent time talking about Maple Avenue and a potential sidewalk there, but it's likely that scope would also require a water main renewal and road improvements as part of the scope. So much larger scope than just the sidewalk itself, potentially. So the second option that's been identified is adding funding to the accessible improvements. And the current value, that's $20,000. So as we talked about in the earlier report, this covers things as improving the infrastructure at designated parking stalls, grades on ramps, tactile warning strips, it's typo there, and then widening sections of sidewalk, those kinds of projects. And then downtown traffic improvements, which we have $50,000 for. This is for smaller capital works projects based on items such as were in the traffic and parking study, public works working files, crosswalk safety, etc. The third option identified is deferring making a specific reallocation for the Starr Street funding. So this would just, I think it's pretty self-explanatory, just holding on to the 36 for now and seeing if there's another opportunity to better utilize that isn't evident right now. So in terms of the financial aspect, the Starr Street sidewalk, the $36,000, the funding sourced from deed transfer tax, and basically that would tie it to infrastructure work. So that's really the only limit with the $36,000 that's evident at this time. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Tyson. Any questions from anybody? Councillor Babineau.
Just wondering if when we're looking at the Pelham Street sidewalk renewals, would that be essentially just redoing what's there, so it being an asphalt sidewalk, or would it be a more traditional concrete sidewalk?
Through the chair, I think we'd be looking at a concrete sidewalk to serve that.
Any other questions from anybody? I guess I have a comment that I'd make. Look, that Pelham Street sidewalk is terrible. I see the pictures. I know myself that hasn't been highlighted to my knowledge to any of us in the last little while, and a few other areas certainly have been. One in particular seems to be Linden Avenue. Now I see it's a much bigger scope of work because you talk about redesigning some road upgrades and this and that. I mean, as long as we're doing sidewalk improvement, I think it's good for the citizens of Lunenburg. I'd much rather see us move Linden Avenue up, like to where Pelham Street is, and move Pelham Street back. But that's my thought, just because I do feel Linden Avenue is one of the first sidewalks you see when you come into town. That seems to be a hot area or hot item area recently with traffic and pedestrian. And third, there really is no sidewalk there now, because what we have there for a sidewalk, I wouldn't call a sidewalk. It's not safe. It's not passable. You couldn't push a stroller on it for sure. And I mean, actually, when we go down that way, we walk down the middle of the road because it's not really, you're basically walking in someone's yard. So that would be my thought. But, it's certainly up to staff when it comes to what you think priorities are in the scope of work. But personally, I think Linden Avenue would take priority over Pelham to Shipyard Hill. That would be my own personal thought.
Your worship?
Deputy Mayor?
I was just going to say further to that, because I was sort of thinking along the same lines, and then was kind of thrown off by the you're reminding us that you'd said that was tied to like a bigger project. And I guess I'm just wondering how that impacts, the amount for that initial amount. So for 2028-29, it was around 35,000 for Linden, which seems like a similar amount to what we're talking about here. So I'm just wondering if there's negative impact to moving them around, or just why you were thinking that it's different than the Pelham Street.
So through the chair, so with reference to the capital budget document, which I'm assuming not everyone has in front of them, but I do. So there was a new sidewalk for Linden Avenue that was carried for design in 28-29 at 35,000, and then 425 for the new sidewalk. But just underneath that, in the street reconstruction resurfacing, there was also $40,000 carried for Linden Avenue for that component of the scope. So 75,000 all up. just looking at the items that the mayor's talked about, like street improvements that could offer some speed calming elements and that kind of things. That's kind of how I envisage that scope, because there is street lighting infrastructure to deal with on the right-hand side that creates the issue that you're talking about, where it's very narrow and it's probably prevented a sidewalk going without me sort of being aware of the full history. I'm assuming that's created issues before. That street parking on that street seems very valuable to the town during busy times as well. But yeah, there's an opportunity there. And then also in that 5-year look ahead, we were also looking at that Dufferin Lincoln Falkland intersection, and I kind of see those two scopes as dependent myself. Obviously it's up to council, but there needs to be flow from that Lincoln, Falkland, Dufferin intersection down to Linden, both for traffic and pedestrians. I think the mayor's right that at the moment that's lacking, but whether they can be done independently, I think is a challenge.
So the idea is that those are all, there's a sequence of events that's more critical with the Linden Avenue project that is, we're better served to keep it where you have it and you have that opportunity to align everything properly to get the work done. Is that fair?
Through the chair, that's the way that staff had considered it, sort of in the long-term planning. It's not the only way to do it, but it seemed a logical way to do it when we were composing this document.
Yeah, because you also have Lower Street there as well that sort of ties into Linden, and it's all one sort of happy sort of situation down there at this point with traffic and parking and everything. So no, I get it. I just think that I know we have a couple of priorities in front of us right now, you know, primarily electrical at this point and other things. But I think that these are some types of projects that we should be looking at applying for assistance from other levels of government and trying to get wrapped up, because I mean that is the entrance really of our waterfront. That is, and the only way to get to our waterfront, if you come down Dufferin Street or Green Street, is down Linden really or Lower Street, and that's how people. So I think whatever we need for funding, we should look at, you know, putting something together in the not so distant future and seeing what opportunities are out there and maybe tackling some of the ideas like you're mentioning sooner rather than later. I don't think the Linden Avenue Lower Street problem can wait till 2030, for example. That's right. So, you know, it's only $35,000. We're not doing anything real big down there. So I'm okay wherever. I just wanted to, you know, I think that's my concern is that somehow gets moved up the priority chain, if it's through federal assistance or provincial assistance or somewhat. But I think we should look at that for next budget season, myself personally. There is a recommendation in front of us. Is someone prepared to move that recommendation? Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to move the recommendation to reallocate the Starr Street new sidewalk funding of 36,000, including net HST to the Pelham Street sidewalk, Shepard Hill to town limits renewal project, so we can get that one started.
Removed. Is there a seconder? Second by Councillor Strong. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Oh, sorry, Councillor Babin.
Sorry, I was just gonna I guess, throw this out there, and I would be interested in actually just deferring the reallocation in case it could come in handy for something else that pops up, because those things tend to happen. I don't know. That's just me, but.
Okay, any other discussion on the motion? Okay, call for the vote. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed? Just sort of principle, I'm going to vote against this. So it's passed 5-1 with the mayor voting in the negative. Thank you very much, everybody. 11.3, Regional Economic Development Partnership. I don't think you're up this time, Tyson. I think it's Mark.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So yeah, on the topic of Regional Economic Development Partnership, staff have been working in the areas of economic development, and Lunenburg and Queens counties have been meeting and working regularly together on a staff level for a number of years. I've personally been involved representing the town of Lunenburg over the past year. But beyond this level of staff initiated collaboration, there's currently no formalized regional economic development body or formalized framework in place in the region. So individual municipal units have been bringing initiatives forward on a case-by-case basis and very much a project-based approach with different levels of collaboration. So a good example, current example is the current housing market study that MODL is leading, but the town of Lunenburg is participating in. So what we are proposing here in this report is a more strategic approach with more of a focus on shared priorities and economic development regionally. So to build on this existing staff-initiated collaboration, staff are proposing studying a more formalized partnership approach to identify areas of shared interest, priority, regional opportunities, and the gaps where we can be better aligned to support businesses and economic development in the region. And at this point, the idea is really that we do not know what that framework should or could look like. In the past, I know there were some formalized frameworks in place, like Iran, that may not have worked to an optimum degree, but the approach we're proposing is to take that idea back to its sort of first principles and explore all the different options and arrive at potentially something different or unique that could work well for this region. And so ultimate desired outcomes there would include creating collaborative economic environments, supporting the businesses, growth and retention, creating regional leadership and increasing revenue and ultimately the economic prosperity through the regional lens. So our staff working group has applied for and now been approved for funding of up to $50,000 from the province via its municipal innovation program, based on this concept of exploring a regional economic development model. And that program is focused on supporting innovative approaches to regional economic development, regional planning, and intermunicipal collaboration. If council supports proceeding with our partners, we would look to procure a consultant collaboratively via MODL, and we would look to bring back a report to council for consideration on any relevant next steps and an action plan. So to be clear, at this point, there's no commitment. We're not looking for any commitment to accept the recommendations that would result from this study. And the scope of the proposed scope of work for the study would include generally a review of the current environment, where are the gaps and opportunities, and then only at the end to propose a potential structure that could accomplish those shared priorities. It would also include, doing a provincial and national scan of plans and similar approaches in other jurisdictions, a review of the primary activities being undertaken in the local municipal units, community engagement on interest and involvement in the partnership, and to identify how the partnership will align with various provincial priorities that will impact the region. And ideally, that would actually facilitate accessing more funding opportunities. So this item was included in the town budget with an allocation of $5,000 for contribution to this work. And my working group partners and I have all sort of feathered out to bring to our respective councils, looking for direct support. So that's what I'm looking for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. I will say that this was discussed at great length at the last mayor, deputy mayor, wardens, CAO's meeting a month or so ago, and everybody was in support of it. This falls in line from what I've been hearing at the conferences I've been attending at the Atlantic Mayors Congress. This was huge, the collaboration, especially on economic development. And the reason I think that this area is taking this approach is they're hoping the consultant can come back with a unique and new, fresh ideas on how we can all work together moving forward. Because the one thing we've all agreed with is that we just don't call it a wren, because any history of a wren in this area didn't have a good history. So I'm glad that we're looking at this approach. I'm glad that we're working with our partners, and I personally feel it's definitely the way to move forward. And I'm sort of excited about to see what they come back with for recommendations. So there is a recommendation in front of us. Is someone prepared to move that at this time? Councillor Babineau.
I'd like to make a motion to direct staff to proceed with the proposed Regional Economic Development Planning Initiative and contribute $5,000 toward the study and action plan.
Moved. Is there a seconder? Second by Councillor Greek. Any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, motion carried unanimous. Thank you, Mark. Next is 11.4, appointing a code of conduct investigator. Kayla?
Oh, thank you. So this is really more of a housekeeping item. So if you recall, kind of near the start of your term, all municipal councils in Nova Scotia were required to adopt the MGA's Code of Conduct for elected officials and appoint an investigator. You have done that. You appointed a lawyer from McGuinness Cooper, who is the town's current legal provider. Now Municipal Affairs has kind of come out and said, not just to the town of Lunenburg, they sent out a broad message to all municipalities basically saying, hey, we saw a lot of you have appointed lawyers from your own legal firm. We think that's a conflict of interest. So correct it. So this is what this is. We're here to correct it. So we are recommending that council appoint Taylor, McLennan, and Cochran as the Municipal Code of Conduct investigator. So these folks have come from a vetted list that the AMANs, the municipal administrators of Nova Scotia, created an expression of interest, and they vetted a list. So that's why we're recommending them, and they are also have the lowest hourly rate. So that's basically it. But if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Any questions for Kayla? Councillor Strong.
Couple of questions I got. So the hourly rate is exclusive of disbursements and all those wonderful things that lawyers like to charge, or it's just for the hourly rate of the lawyer doing the work?
Yeah, so the way this would work is they are technically on our retainer, but we're not paying them the same kind of legal services fee that we do with McGuinness Cooper. We only consult them when when a complaint has been filed. So it would have that hourly rate based on the lawyer's work.
And secondly, I know the rate is important, but did we look at the Taylor, McClellan, Cochran lawyers to see the actual experience of investigation? I know that was my comment at when we first appointed, was that the lawyer that we appointed was a pensions and benefits administrator. So I didn't know how that actually fit in with the experience of investigation that's required to do this kind of work.
Yeah, so in terms of who the exact lawyer is, we don't have that just right now at this point. So as I noted before, AMANs did kind of do a vetted list. They did a call of expressions, and then from there they decided 7 choices that they thought were very fitted for this kind of work. So this firm being on it makes me feel confident that they'd be able to handle it. However, we don't know the exact lawyer who that is. So once council decides to appoint, then we'd be in touch, and then their contact would go up on our website. That being said, if council isn't comfortable with this firm, or they want to defer, or take some time, or look at other ones, we can absolutely do that too.
I'm not making a comment about the quality of work or anything like that. I'm just asking for personal reasons and professional reasons. But how do we get out of it if we discover that it's not working to our satisfaction? Is there an escape clause, or do we just have a retainer with them, period?
Yeah, so that would come up in our service agreement. So the first step would be getting council to agree to appoint, and then we'll be in touch with them, sign a contract, whatever that looks like. So that would be something that we'd look at likely with McGuinness Cooper, our lawyers, just to make sure it follows best practices.
Thank you. That's all of my questions.
Are there any other questions? There's a recommendation in front of us. Is someone prepared to move the recommendation? Councillor Strong.
I'd like to, for council to make a motion. I would like to make the motion for council to appoint Taylor, McClellan, and Cochran as a municipal code of conduct investigator.
From moved, is there a seconder? seconded by Deputy Mayor. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, motion carried unanimous. Now on to number 12, notice of motions, information requests and council reports. This will be a lot less entertaining than normally with Councillor Daphne not in attendance tonight. But I'd like to actually start because it's my mess up. I showed up a little late tonight. I was a little befuddled, but I'd like to start by welcoming our newest employee. Christy Thibault is our new recreation coordinator. So Christy, welcome aboard to Town of Lunenburg. We're very pleased to have you, and I hope everything goes well. And welcome aboard Team Lunenburg. And the other thing is, the other Jamie and I have been working on getting a newsletter put out. We were going to put it out a while ago, but we thought with all the events going on in early July, we were going to wait towards the end of this month. So sometimes between now and the end of this month, there'll be a newsletter coming out, and then we'll be trying to do that on a regular, somewhat regular basis. So again, that's all I have to report. So we'll start to the far left, Councillor Fullerton.
I do have one event that I've been involved with and participated in to report on. And with the indulgence of my fellow council members and others present, I just wanted to provide a brief follow-up on the June 30th event that was held for the Norwegian Navy Band here in Lunenburg. And that this event started as a request from the Navy Band to play a concert at Zion Lutheran Church and became something much larger than that, and became a collaboration of many people and many organizations in the town of Lunenburg. And I would just like to say that there are a lot of people to thank who contributed to and made it possible for the Royal Norwegian Navy Band to have the day they envisioned. They wanted to visit the Abco property, the former site of Camp Norway. They wanted to play music on the Blue Nose Wharf. They marched through Lunenburg and placed wreaths at the cenotaph. They visited the grave sites of their departed comrades, and they played beautiful music for the people of Lunenburg at the Lutheran Church before they headed back to Halifax. I have a full list of the people and organizations who were involved in this important event. I can either list those here, or I can give them to Jamie Deans as the communications director, and he can share those as he sees fit. There was also media coverage provided for the event by some radio stations and one of the local newspapers. And just on a personal note, it was very heartwarming to me to see the positive response and excitement from everyone I spoke with about this event. And I was truly proud to represent our community in planning and making this event happen for our NNB, the Royal Norwegian Navy Band. The weather cooperated. There were lots of people to greet them everywhere they went. We fed them and made sure they had the opportunity to experience the same warm Lunenburg hospitality their departed comrades had experienced when they arrived in Lunenburg in 1940. It was a privilege and a pleasure to work with these men and women, planning for what was them a deeply personal and emotional visit to Lunenburg and Camp Norway. And as the Navy Band Unit Commanding Officer Stenbrath said, we are honored today that we could walk in the footsteps of our heroes, to be in the place where they lived and worked, see what they saw, and we are very grateful to the people of Lunenburg for making it possible. This concludes the report.
Thank you very much. Councillor Greek,
Nothing to report today.
Councillor Babineau, Councillor Strong.
It's a late meeting, so I'll be late. Nothing really to report. I made the comment about the applications for the grants, and I do feel that that there's some benefit in the community working together to overcome food insecurity, for example, and some of the other things that were really difficult for us to land a dollar amount on. And whatever help I think council could give, that would be a wonderful thing. Maybe it's Jamie doing things on social media or whatever. But anyway, that was an important thing for me. And I guess I have another meeting before Councillor Greek turns whatever age he turns. So I'll wait until the next meeting for that report.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thanks. moving or adding on to the community grants effort. And I think a couple of things. First of all, I just like to say that going through the community grant process and seeing the breadth of things that go on in this very small, relatively small community is quite astonishing and really impressive. And it's difficult to actually properly pay tribute to what happens here with the small contributions that we make through community grants. But I hope that they all realize that we are truly grateful for all of the things that volunteer organizations contribute, because the number of festivals and social support systems and, you know, the variety of things that go on is extremely impressive. And we're very fortunate to have such a variety of organizations active in Lunenburg. So thank you to all of them. And so I'd also like to then make a notice of motion to the point that the mayor made earlier, and that we've spoken of as well, is that we ask staff to review and recommend amendments to the community grant program policy that exists at the moment, you know, with our recent experience, and we were all new to the game. So, and perhaps have a new policy come back to us, you know, in ample time for the next time we go through this process, which gives us a time, but a notice of motion, so we can look at a formal motion next time, if I'm doing that correctly, Kayla. And one final thing is just to mention, it was on the list, but because it's something that I'm personally have been involved in, and that's the 55+ games. I just want to put a plug in on about that again, just because the games aren't till September 21st and 24th. Through to the 24th. It's happening throughout Lunenburg County in various venues, and in Lunenburg, it looks, hopefully we'll be hosting the track and field events, and also tennis is happening in Lunenburg. So those things for people who may want to either just see what it's all about right here, but also in Bridgewater and Mahone Bay and other venues throughout our county. But they're also keen to have volunteers. So, you know, for a half a day or a full day or for out the duration of the games, the organizing committee is keen to have people step up or express an interest, and they would certainly find a job, however big or small, depending on your skill set and what your interests are. So a plug for that. I was just at a committee of or a meeting for the volunteers last week. And so they were asking us to put out the word, and also for participants, to those of us who are 55+, this is an opportunity to participate in both athletic pursuits. There's a wide variety of things to do, but also other leisure activities. It's not just, you know, for you know, extremely physically active. It's also for any kind of, or a number of more social activities are also included in the list of activities for the game. So have a look at the website, and you may find something you'd like to get involved in. Thanks.
Thank you. And I actually forgot a couple of things. One is our next meeting is scheduled for August the 12th. We're going to look at rescheduling it to August the 19th. If everybody's okay with that, we're hoping to have our new CAO here at that time, and he won't be here on the 12th. So if everybody's okay with that, it gives staff lots of time to change the calendar, put it out there so everybody knows about it. We're being as open and transparent as we possibly can be. So is everybody okay with the 19th? And it's also Alex's birthday.
Alex's birthday is at the end of the month, so I'll miss it at the
Oh, okay, sorry. Okay. Okay, that's the first thing. And the second thing that I'd just like to say that this past weekend, our Canadian Dory Rowers Association went down to Gloucester. They had a very successful weekend. They all got home safe and sound. They said it was lovely. it was a wonderful weekend. They won 3 of 5 races, so very successful on a competitive front as well. I was actually talking to Senator Tyre today, back and forth, and he's hoping and looking forward to coming here in August for the event. So again, I think it's around the 21st weekend of August, so mark that in your calendars, and it should be a really exciting event. So again, congratulations to the Canadians that went down, and also to the Americans that participated.
You may just want to mention why you were a little late.
Oh, yes, and I'm also late because the Blue Nose Golf Club revealed a wooden statue creation of Captain Angus Walters. It's actually bigger than life size at the gate of the Blue Nose Golf Club. It was Ron Callback come up with the idea when they were cutting down all the trees. Ron and Shelley Callback is the family that owns the land the golf course is on. So I was asked to speak at the beginning, and the executive director of the Blue Nose was actually there they brought almost the whole crew, which was kind of cool to see. Our MLA was there, Susan Corcoran Greek. It was probably about 50 people plus there at the gate of the golf course. If you drive by it tonight, or actually you only have to turn the corner, there's a sharp corner, you can actually see it. It's quite large. It's beautiful. It's definitely something worth seeing, and it was funny. The Susan Corcoran brought up about how Gloucester has a statue at their waterfront, and now it's fitting that at the entrance of Blue Nose Golf Course, which was actually Blue Nose Golf Course started in 1933. The Blue Nose launched in 1921. So in only 12 years, the boat became so famous that the golf course, 12 years later, when it was open and started, it actually named it after the schooner at the time. So that tells you the importance of that schooner like 100 years later. So again, it was a great event. Take a drive, go look at it. It really is very nice. So again, Ron and Shelley were hoping to be here this week. Unfortunately, they were unable to make it, but I'm sure when they're able, they'll be here in Lunenburg for a couple of days to see it. We have lots of pictures of video to send him, so I'm sure Mr. and Mrs. Callback will be very pleased with the design. Everybody there was ecstatic. Jay said that the guy that built it actually, or made it, said it turned into a larger than life project, and it's just big. It's really big, which is good because it's also heavy. It's like 600 plus pounds, so hopefully it'll be there for a long time. So anyways, again, that's all I have in that. And move on to number 13, just items of consideration. Again, if you know of anything you want to put in committee of the whole, email staff, and we'll have a committee of the whole meeting in early September. There won't be any committee of the whole meeting in August. This will be the last meeting that we have until August 19th, except for special meetings like PAC, if we have to have stuff, but we're going to try to hold off on any type of meeting that we don't absolutely have to have until the August 19th meeting, like other councils do in the country. So we're going to take 5 weeks off except for special meetings. Obviously, we'll be attending all the functions we're asked to go to. We'll be meeting with others, and we'll be going from there. But unless it's absolutely necessary, we won't be having any other meetings. And again, this possibly is the last meeting that the gentleman to my left will be in attendance. Marvin came on board of this team in mid-February. He was supposed to be gone a while ago to go fishing at his cottage, and we have a new person starting in a couple, 2 to 3 weeks or so. Marvin has graciously agreed to stay on, and I must say that I've served on council a long time, but it's been an honor and a privilege to have you working beside me and with me, and the things that you've accomplished in 5 or 6 months it really has been great. And you wouldn't take us up on staying for 5 more years. So enjoy your vacation, Marvin, and your retirement, because it's well deserved. So there's a motion action list that's there. So seeing nothing else, I'd like a motion to move in closed session. Moved by Councillor Strong. Thank you. Thank you very much, folks.
Thank you.